You know that feeling when your whole world crumbles, but somehow you're the last one to realize it? Yeah, that was me 3 weeks ago. My name's Evan, 39 years old, from Peoria, Illinois. I've been married to Lisa for 14 years. 14 years I thought were, maybe not perfect, but solid. We had our rough patches like anyone else, but I always believed we were a team. Turns out, I was playing solo, and she'd been rewriting the rulebook behind my back. It started small, as these things always do. A few late nights here and there. Her phone, once left casually on the counter, now glued to her side or face down with the screen off. I'd ask how work was, and she'd just shrug, saying it was busy or the same. But her smile stopped reaching her eyes. Her laugh had a new pitch I didn't recognize. And little by little, I felt like I was watching a stranger take over the woman I married. I ignored it at first. Told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself I was imagining the shift. But deep down, something gnawed at me. A voice I didn't want to hear. And then last Friday happened. Lisa came home that night, around 11:30, way later than usual, smiling. Not just any smile, but this radiant, giddy, almost teenage grin. Like she'd just won a prize. Like she'd been out with someone who made her feel alive in a way I apparently couldn't anymore. I watched her drop her purse by the door, humming to herself as she kicked off her heels, still lost in whatever glow she'd been soaking in. And that's when I knew. That was the moment. I wasn't just being paranoid. I wasn't overthinking. I was living it. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just sitting there clueless. I'd been doing my own quiet digging. And what I'd uncovered, well, let's just say her little date nights weren't as private as she thought. So when she turned and saw me standing in the kitchen, she froze for a split second, masking it with a casual, "Oh hey, you're still up?" But I wasn't up waiting to ask how her night went. No, I had a manila envelope in my hand. And inside, her ticket out. "Lisa," I said calmly, "you've got 10 minutes to sign these divorce papers and pack a bag. You're leaving tonight." Her smile evaporated. She didn't move at first, just stood there, blinking, her lips parting like she was about to speak, but no words came out. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to talk her way out like she always did. But I wasn't giving her that chance. She finally scoffed, shaking her head like I was the crazy one. "You're overreacting," she said, her voice lilting into that practiced tone she used whenever she wanted to make me doubt myself. "Evan, it's not what you think. I was just out with the girls. We went dancing. You know how we get when we're out. It's harmless." Harmless. That word hung in the air like smoke. Except I wasn't choking on it this time. I walked to the counter, pulled out my phone, and slid it across the table toward her. "Then maybe you can explain this." On the screen was a photo. Not grainy. Not from a distance. Crystal clear. Lisa, in that same outfit, sitting at a downtown Peoria restaurant, leaning in close to a man I'd never seen before, their hands entwined across the table. Her head tilted in that flirty way she used to save just for me. Her face paled instantly. I didn't need to raise my voice. Didn't need to rage. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. 10 minutes, Lisa, I repeated softly. And for a moment, just a flicker, I saw it, the crack in her armor. The realization that the game was over. But what she didn't expect was that I wasn't the only one who knew. Before she could open her mouth again, my phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't even have to check who it was. I already knew. I picked it up, glanced at the screen, and held it out so she could see the name, Claire, Michael's wife. Yeah, her lover's wife. Lisa's face twisted, first confusion, then dread. "Why is she calling you?" she whispered, her voice suddenly small. I let the question hang there for a beat before answering. "Because she knows, Lisa. She knows everything. And you know what's funny? Turns out Michael's been lying to both of you." Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the back of a chair. "Evan, wait." I stepped closer, my voice still calm, but with steel under it. "Claire reached out to me last week. Guess she started getting suspicious too. You weren't as sneaky as you thought." I gave a bitter chuckle. "She tracked you down, figured it out, and decided we both deserved the truth." I watched the color drain from Lisa's face as realization settled in. "Claire's not just calling to talk, Lisa," I added. "She's filing for divorce. And she's planning to go public. Michael's company, his reputation, his little empire, it's about to go down in flames." Lisa swallowed hard, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to argue, but no excuses came out. I folded my arms. 10 minutes, Lisa. And you better believe I'm counting." Lisa sank into the nearest chair like her legs had finally given up. Her fingers pressed against her temple, rubbing small frantic circles as she stared at the floor. "This can't be happening," she muttered. more to herself than to me. I watched her carefully. There it was, that flicker of panic I'd been waiting for. The realization that she wasn't just caught, she was trapped. You think Michael's going to save you? I asked quietly. Bet he'll swoop in, clean up the mess, make it all go away? I leaned against the counter, arms folded, voice calm and low. He's already cutting ties. Claire told me everything. He's been moving money into accounts under his brother's name for months. He never planned to leave her for you. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, lips trembling. That's not true. Oh, it is. I almost pitied her in that moment, almost. He's been stringing you along, telling you just enough to keep you hanging, but never following through. You were a fun distraction, Lisa. That's it. She shook her head violently, tears starting to form in the corners of her eyes. You don't know him, Al. I know enough. I cut her off, letting the words land heavy. Claire sent me screenshots. His texts. Promises he never meant to keep. Lies he fed you because he knew you'd believe them. I stepped closer, voice dropping lower. He played you, Lisa. And while you were busy destroying this marriage for him, he was busy making sure you'd have nothing left when he was done. Lisa's hands flew up to cover her face as a sob finally broke free. But I didn't step forward to comfort her. Not this time. I let the silence stretch between us, only the faint buzz of my phone vibrating again on the counter. Another message from Claire. She says they're calling his board tomorrow, I added quietly. Press is getting a tip-off too. It's all coming down, Lisa. And you? You're collateral damage. She pulled her hands away from her face, mascara smudged, her mouth opening in desperation. Evan, please, we can fix this. We can figure it out. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Fix this? There's no, we left, Lisa. You burned it down. I just finally stopped pretending we were standing in the same house. I pushed the envelope closer to her across the table. Sign them. Or don't. But either way, you're leaving tonight. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language, like if she looked hard enough they'd say something different. But no lifeline was coming. Not from me. Not from Michael. Not from anyone. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar stirring in my chest. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Something closer to peace. Lisa slowly picked up the pen, her hands trembling as she hovered over the signature line. The countdown wasn't over, but her game was. She hovered there, pen trembling above the line, like signing that page meant stepping off a cliff. I leaned back against the counter, arms still folded, letting her sit in it. I wasn't rushing her. I didn't need to. Every second that ticked by wasn't buying her time, it was taking it away. I didn't mean for it to get this far, Lisa whispered finally, not looking up. Her voice was thin, fragile, like paper tearing. I swear, Evan, it wasn't supposed to be serious. A bitter smile crept onto my face. Funny. It looks pretty serious from here. She finally raised her head, tears streaming down her face now, mascara streaks marking her cheeks like battle scars. He told me he loved me, she said softly. He told me we'd have a life together. I shook my head slowly. He told you what you wanted to hear, Lisa. That's what men like him do. But love? Real love? It doesn't hide in hotel rooms and whispered lies. She closed her eyes tightly, her shoulders shaking. I gave up everything for him. I felt my chest tighten, not out of sympathy, but at the irony. No, Lisa, you gave up us for him. You threw away a marriage. You threw away trust. You threw away me. And for what? I gestured at the phone still buzzing on the counter. For a man who wouldn't even pick up her call tonight. She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. Just a broken, breathless silence. I stepped forward and tapped the papers. Sign them. End it clean, Lisa. Don't drag this out more than you already have. Her hand trembled harder, but then, finally, the pen hit the page. One stroke, then another, her signature sprawling across the line like a reluctant confession. I exhaled slowly. That's it, I said quietly. You're free. Lisa set the pen down like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice hollow. That's not my problem anymore. I replied evenly. You made your choice, Lisa. Now you live with it. She looked around the house, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents, the couch where we'd spent lazy Sundays. Her gaze lingered on the framed photos still hanging on the wall. You're really doing this, she murmured. I nodded. I really am. And then she did something I didn't expect. She stood, gathered her purse, and walked toward the door. No more protests. No more pleading. Just a quiet resignation, like she knew the door was closing behind her for good. At the threshold, she paused. Evan. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. And then she was gone. But what neither of us knew then was that her consequences were only just beginning. The house felt impossibly still after the door clicked shut behind her. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence she left in her wake. 14 years, And it all ended with the soft sound of a closing door. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in that wild, fiery way I'd imagined I'd feel. It was colder, quieter, a strange, steady calm that settled deep in my bones. Like something heavy had been lifted, even if I didn't know what came next. I turned off the kitchen light, walked into the living room, and sat down on the couch. Across from me, the photos still hung, smiling faces, captured vacations, moments frozen in time that now felt like lies. I wondered how long those smiles had been fake. How long she'd been looking somewhere else, even while standing beside me. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Claire. Call me when you're ready. We need to talk next steps. Next steps. God, what a phrase. Like we were planning a business merger instead of unraveling two marriages at once. I let the phone rest on the coffee table and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Michael, the man she threw everything away for. The man who, even now, wasn't answering her calls. I imagined him pacing in some expensive apartment downtown, his perfect little world starting to crack under the pressure. Claire wasn't bluffing. She had everything: emails, bank statements, even security camera footage. And now she had me backing her. They were both about to learn what happens when the people they underestimated decide to stop playing nice. It wasn't revenge, exactly. I didn't want to destroy Lisa or Michael just for the sake of it. But I wasn't going to be their quiet casualty either. They didn't get to walk away clean. They didn't get to write the ending. I stood up and took down one of the wedding photos. Studied it under the lamplight. God, we'd been so young. I could barely recognize that man in the tuxedo. Back then I thought love was enough. That being good and loyal would hold it all together. Turns out, love's only as strong as the people carrying it. And some people let go a long time before you realize you're holding dead weight. I set the photo face down on the table. Then I picked up my phone and dialed Claire. Hey, I said when she answered. My voice sounded steadier than I expected. Let's do this. Because some endings need to be written with a little fire. Claire didn't waste any time. She told me over the phone that Michael had stopped answering her calls. Her voice carried an undercurrent of cold determination beneath the clipped words, a steel that mirrored what I'd begun to feel inside myself. She explained that the lawyer had already drafted the divorce papers. They would be served to Michael at his office first thing in the morning. I pictured it easily. Michael sitting in his polished corner office, sipping expensive coffee, smug in his illusion of control. And then, the knock on the door. The envelope. The slow, dawning realization that his world wasn't as untouchable as he believed. Claire mentioned that the board would be meeting at 9 a.m., and that she had already forwarded them the evidence. She knew they wouldn't protect him, not with this much proof. It struck me how fragile the persona Michael had cultivated really was. Years of carefully curated photos, press releases, charity events, yet behind the polished exterior was a man so reckless, he'd risk everything without thinking twice. Lisa had never seen that side of him. Or maybe she had, and simply refused to admit it. Claire's voice softened when she admitted she just wanted Michael out of their lives. I felt the same. I warned her that he would try to twist everything, paint us as co-conspirators, claim betrayal where there was only truth. Claire assured me she was ready. She had the evidence. And I did too. After we hung up, I sat alone in the quiet house again, letting the weight of the last few years settle over me like a heavy blanket. There was a strange comfort in the stillness, even though every shadow in the room seemed to whisper memories I wasn't ready to revisit. I realized then that giving Lisa the chance to walk out with some shred of dignity had never been about mercy. Somewhere inside, I knew she'd never see it that way. She would rewrite the narrative, make herself the victim. I could already imagine the rumors that would follow, the selective truths she'd tell to anyone who'd listen. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't trying to salvage her image. I wasn't interested in being the bigger man. I was simply done. A knock at the door startled me. I hadn't expected anyone. Peering through the peephole, I saw Claire standing there, clutching a coat around her shoulders, eyes tired but resolute. I opened the door, surprised she had come in person. She admitted she couldn't sit at home, that the walls felt too close, the silence too loud. I let her in. She stood in the middle of the living room, her gaze sweeping across the space like she was seeing the ghost of a life that wasn't hers but still familiar. She commented on the emptiness of the house, and I found myself quietly agreeing. She turned to me, her expression soft but firm, as though silently asking if I was holding up. I managed a tired smile, feeling the ache beneath it. I told myself I'd answer that question tomorrow. She moved to the table, gently picked up the wedding photo I had left face down. Her fingers brushed the frame, lingering there. And for the first time in a long while, I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I really was stronger than I'd allowed myself to believe. Claire sat down on the couch beside me, setting the wedding photo carefully on the coffee table. Her hands folded in her lap, fingers twisting a simple silver ring around and around. There was something quiet between us, not awkward, not tense, just a shared understanding that didn't need words. For a while, neither of us moved. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the windows, casting long shadows across the walls. Every creak of the house seemed louder than usual, every distant car engine a reminder that the world kept spinning, indifferent to the wreckage left in its path. I thought about how strange it was to have Claire here, in this house where Lisa had once filled every corner. And now, Lisa's absence felt bigger than her presence ever had. The silence she left behind wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. Like the air had been sucked out, leaving nothing but weight. Claire leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, her gaze fixed on the framed photos still hanging. Her expression was unreadable, but I could sense the quiet inventory she was taking, the life Lisa and I had built, the memories layered on the walls, now stripped of meaning. I wondered if Claire felt the same ache I did. That slow, sinking realization that the people you loved had been playing a different game all along. That the version of them you held onto wasn't real, just a projection you desperately wanted to believe. At some point, she stood and wandered to the bookshelf, trailing her fingers across the spines. She picked up a photo of Lisa and me at our 10th anniversary dinner, stared at it for a long moment, then set it face down beside the others. Her movements were gentle, but final. The clock on the wall ticked louder in the stillness. Each second felt like another mile, putting distance between the life I had and the life I was stepping into. I didn't know where that road led, only that there was no going back. Claire turned toward me, her expression softer now, her shoulders less tense. There was something shared in that look, two strangers bound by betrayal, each carrying the wreckage of someone else's choices. I realized then that neither of us had chosen this. But here we were, standing in the ashes, figuring out how to start again. And maybe, somehow, that was enough. Claire didn't stay long. After a while, she stood, smoothing her coat, glancing once more around the room before quietly saying she needed to go. I walked her to the door, watching as she disappeared down the driveway, headlights blinking once before fading into the night. The house felt different once she left. Emptier, somehow. Like her presence had been the last anchor holding the night together, and without it, the silence pressed heavier against the walls. I wandered back to the living room, pausing by the coffee table. The wedding photo still lay face down where Claire had left it. I didn't bother flipping it over. I didn't need to see those frozen smiles again. They belonged to people who didn't exist anymore. Something in me wanted to pack everything up, box the photos, clear the shelves, erase every trace of the life I thought I had. But I couldn't move. Not yet. The weight of it all pinned me to the spot, a quiet exhaustion settling deep in my chest. I sat down again, letting the house close in around me. Memories crept in like whispers, Lisa laughing in this room, the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, the way she used to call my name from the kitchen. Ghosts of ordinary moments that now felt distant, untouchable. But alongside them came sharper flashes. The late nights. The excuses. The way her phone was always turned away. The stories that never quite added up. Looking back, the signs had been everywhere, scattered like breadcrumbs I refused to follow. I wondered how long she'd been gone in her heart before her body finally followed. Eventually, I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, a soft wind stirring the leaves. I watched the darkness stretch down the block, the glow of distant porch lights blinking like small promises I wasn't ready to believe. A flicker of resolve stirred beneath the ache. The life I had wasn't coming back. But something else could be built here. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday. For now, I let the night wrap around me. Let the house be still. Let the silence speak. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to fill it. Morning came slowly, gray light seeping through the blinds, casting dull stripes across the floor. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out of heavy, restless thoughts. The weight of everything pressed down like fog, thick and lingering. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee machine without turning it on. Routine felt foreign now, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Even the smallest actions felt hollow, disconnected from the man I used to be. The phone buzzed on the counter again. Claire had left a message. Michael had been served. The board had met. Things were moving fast, faster than I expected. His empire was unraveling thread by thread, and I wasn't sure how I felt watching it collapse. It wasn't satisfaction, not really. More like a strange, quiet vindication. The truth had finally caught up to him. And Lisa? Her name hadn't come up in any reports yet, but it would. Soon, the ripples would reach her too. I wondered where she was now. I hadn't heard from her since she walked out the door. Part of me imagined her sitting alone in a motel room, scrolling endlessly through unanswered messages, trying to piece together what went wrong. Another part suspected she was still clinging to hope that Michael would call, still waiting for a lifeline that wasn't coming. I leaned against the counter, letting my eyes close briefly. The exhaustion felt bone deep. But under it was something steady, a quiet resolve that had taken root overnight. I wasn't sure what came next. I hadn't planned that far ahead. But for the first time in a long time, the future didn't terrify me. There was something strangely freeing in the uncertainty. Eventually, I made the coffee, sat at the table, let the warmth of the mug seep into my hands. I watched the steam curl upward and thought about everything I'd lost and everything I hadn't realized I was gaining. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't triumphant. It was this, sitting in the quiet, no longer waiting for an apology that would never come, no longer hoping for a version of love that didn't exist. It was simply breathing, in a house that finally belonged only to me.